Hi, I'm Kendra Lockhart, and I want to thank you for tuning in with me. Here I am, alongside old and new colleagues in this event called The Shift. It's about time for a stripped down and straightforward look into transformation and awakening. Here we are in an unprecedented year. 2025 promises to be like no other. If this is going to be that different, do you deeply believe that the old version of you, old ways, old patterns, even that old playbook, are your master key for this unknown realm? With that said, I have been watching the shifts since 2020. I know that the way things were have or are disappearing for all of us. On an individual level, I witness myself and others outgrowing both their tools and their fears. The adventure in integrating and being available for new is right here and right now. Maybe you're hitting a wall around your spiritual growth or plateauing in awakening. And the rerun that brought me out of retirement as a metaphysical trainer was that loop or rerun or Groundhog Day that no matter what was said or done or tried, it left the same lessons, pains, and echoes of that person showing up again and again in either friendships or work environments or romance. So let's make 2025 your best of times and not your worst of times. Today's video is going to address a behind the scenes on the modality I used for myself while I train students and clients to master as well. Who I am, plus what I am in the big picture and collective purpose going forward. How to shift your energy signature, kick off karma in the sense of soul lessons, bend reality, and have a new platform for life. I'll share my old world before my jump. I'll tell you some successes and how you can have a blank space that's available for you for this year. We'll do a sample exercise to shift. It will be broken into the understanding and then the action. At the end of this, you can learn where you can find my work by yourself, in a group, online, or one-to-one. Now, why I wanted to know metaphysics from a very early age is that I sensed, even as a kid, I had a lot inside. And there was a big contrast to the life I was born into, and even later, the one I would go through as I was growing. It just didn't match well. So, of course, I ran around. Then, like many people have done or are doing now, trying to gain tons of knowledge, find spiritual mentors, locate those teachers with abilities to show me how my inside and outside could fit together like puzzle pieces, or just plain go together like peanut butter and jelly as one sandwich. Short story, way too long. I did all that. And not without years of trial and error, wrong turns, and some terrible teachers. We can make the joke, well, what doesn't work? Well, how long have you got? But let's break it down into simple responses. Let's address the obvious. Maybe you're seeing somebody have a killer streak and your mind goes two ways. Either, hey, that should be me because I'm doing XYZ, plus I'm this, that, and the other. Or it goes within. What am I not doing and where do I fall short? Let's begin at the beginning. Duality thoughts never work. Divided mind equals divided results. That is metaphysics and magic 101. What else doesn't work? Suffering towards awakening. The teacher who says, "Oh, well, we all have dues to pay. You must have done something to deserve ABC. Your soul needs to learn XYZ. Have you considered you contracted and signed up for exactly this experience?" Oh, what a sick joke, even as a kid, it was to me that you're supposed to owe on something you can't remember doing. We'll hold that thought. We're going to talk more about how metaphysics approaches karma. And yes, of course, I fired that mentor. Now, what really doesn't work is that dopamine of joining New Age girlies or woke bros who are teaching manifesting or law of attraction or gasp, clutch your pearls, the self-appointed high priestesses or star seeds coming to show you on TikTok how to be witchy for 4, 5, or sometimes 6 figures. I call them sick figures because they prey on your wounds, having no community, a lack of belonging, zero support, or basically feeling way too different. Anybody can sell a country club card and a side scoop of pseudo skills. After all, even I threw my money at an expert to bypass and shortcut straight to results. They're not sustainable, and coming down from the high isn't fun. How do I know what does work? My old business tagline, ancient wisdom for modern times, is because what I do is deeply rooted in the Greek and Hindu philosophy and practice that was legacied for centuries until our collective egos said, nah, we need to discover something better and then take credit for it. As for this lifetime, today's consciousness is experiencing unprecedented growth in science-backed proof of exactly what they meant back then. In other words, think of it this way. Electricity was always existing before we had the resources to discover it and format it. So if you're living right here and right now, this is provable that the fruits of their intuition and altered mind states still give us the seeds to become that same type of wellness. I'll say more about the modern times part, since that's where we're all at, but here's the part that I think's a little fun. How did I get here? You may or may not know that Chicago is the most supernatural city. It's like the Hogwarts of metaphysics. And I've learned mountains of both useful material and even more unworkable methods. Not because it failed me, but rather because it stopped sustaining those who were teaching it. And that is my red flag. That is my non-negotiable. 1, this has to work. 2, this has to work for the long game. 3, it has to work for those I train. And 4, it had to have worked for those before me that I'm drawing upon and simplifying for our current era. Let's start with that word. Meta what? Metaphysics. The simplest and clearest way to explain is this. It is the order of and within the invisible realm. Nature, seen and unseen, loves structure and system. It's our ego that is designed from chaos and, of course, very adept at it. I say that to illuminate the contrast and help the distinction. So, in the world of matter or physical reality, we see order everywhere, which creates harmony. We even build our own. We know languages to communicate with one another. We agree on times and the calendar and places so that we can arrive together or depart on our own. What we don't see is the organization of what can't be recognized in matter or with the 5 senses. And those who scoff at metaphysics will blindly shrug and call it fate or bad luck, or God's will, some type of superstitious thinking. And hey, at least the brain tried, right? Mythology is an attempt to reason with the absence of comprehension. I'm here to say, great news. There is a science to the energy side of our experience. It allows us a way to connect the material with the forces inside and outside of us so that we can have complete order on demand. Now, since I was young, I've wanted to know the ways of the universe, and I've needed to know how to unify dark and light, chaos and order. Because Kendra's little identity and all of its limits wasn't gonna give her enough in her own hands to succeed in certain situations down the line. I knew this early on. So, like a classic Gen X kid who got home alone before my parents finished working, I'd hop on my Schwinn 3-speed bike and I'd go hang out at the library. When I should have been doing my homework, I could be found in the ancient cultures section and what was also lumped together back then as quote unquote alternative studies. Worlds exploded and I began to awaken beyond some kid in Chicagoland who was bored to death in institutionalized education systems. Fast forward many years, and the next big Hogwarts I could find was Transitions Book Place, the nation's largest metaphysical reading and lecture center. I could study by myself through all these written works, but I could also listen to some up-and-coming greats. And I personally chose to commit to the work of Caroline Myss, who, at the time before, was a classic theologian, and then had a radical life awakening. She became a medical intuitive and began teaching why we don't heal and how energetics plays into that. The framework that she and I could intersect on was the chakra system. Both of us will say that if you think we didn't know what was going on back then, today's misunderstanding of it is 10 times greater. But meeting her and finding common ground kickstarted my own work over 20 years ago. All right, so now you have a sense of me and the origin story. Ta-da! Let's go into a behind the scenes on how I train and what to expect. I will say one more thing about the chakras gone wrong. It is a perfect language of energetics in your biofield, or subtle bodies, or quote unquote aura, if we want to speak in terms of light and invisible power. So let's do that. And I can probably laugh with you that you've heard a lot of today's spiritual bypassers say, eat blueberries and open up your throat chakra. Wear red to feel grounded. Here's why that can't work. The problem has already showed up in form in you in your life. Where did it start before it was formed? Light became darkened, space got filled, and something singular got split. So instead, let's treat this like a musical scale, both up and down. Let's borrow that framework on top of what was the chakra framework. You can hear when a note is out of tune. And for anyone who can't imagine a musical scale or doesn't understand exactly what I'm talking about, I'll torture you right now with that do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do formula. So we are leaving the body map to the side and we're having an energy medicine chat. And as that scale ascends and descends, I will cover later once we have the building blocks here for integration. This is a lot simpler and more efficient than shadow work. Energy can be unified or divided. We see this all the time in our everyday lives, in our cell phones, in our flat irons, in our lasers. So this isn't new. We are living in such a relatively advanced time that science is everywhere. Different frequencies and amount of energies that correlated to types of wellness isn't new. It is a simple understanding or onboarding to bring all of you together into a singular source and power, where you think, feel, and exist in a coherence. That is your original design, both in your energy, the invisible or metaphysical, and in your matter, the visible and physical. And before I discuss the ways we split our energy, the biggest one to address is why we don't learn or stay healthy. It's because the first union that needs to happen is around the dividing of knowledge from experiencing wellness. We have seen this discussed in the Bible, in Kabbalah, in Sanskrit texts, in traditional Chinese medicine, and just about every modality out there. Instead, nowadays we get two camps. The partials, or the ones who binge on information and can never taste its fruits, and the ones who are fruitful, but have zero understanding of its source or pattern. And this is where integration begins. Both must work together like a knife and fork, or a unit, in order to make everything singular and whole as a united state. Start with your understanding. So now you've heard a bit about the mind state, which requires union. Let's move on to energy hygiene. I'm sure you've been hearing the word somatic become more and more popular over the years. That is the effect of energy, whether it's balanced or imbalanced. Think of a thermometer telling us the current temperature. When you make this second union, energy to body, the physical stops being the result or symptom of some reason or force. When it is in coherence with energy, it will co-create with the environment. And now we're going to walk through part of the exercise. We're going to discuss what disrupts these integrations energetically. Science can now establish physical proof of the ancient wisdom, and here we are with modern teachings on this. But remember, while our times have changed, our original design has not. It has been divided, and it has been forgotten. So let's walk through what separates our metaphysical and physical selves. The foundational density, our lowest level of consciousness, is going to hold fear. The absence of space where we are in coherence with stillness, security, or stability. Several experiences can split us. Lack, which is not having. Scarcity, which is not having enough. And external uncertainties, often around safety, are ways we energetically go into survival gear, or some confront or avoid safety and groundedness. So instead of the unification, the oneness of connection to being here, there is now dysregulation around belonging and basic needs. The next space holds our nature to be flexible, giving and receiving a partnership and nurturing. The absence of our own fluidity and sensory nature is from an imbalance of guilt. Unhealthy dynamics, as well as restriction around a sense of surrender or interest in our own desire in our lives, will not form the boundaries that set us up to individuate. Boundaries plus desire give us, through choice for our natural self, who we are. Without knowing what is okay or not okay, we stall out around emotional integration. It's here, at this phase, we see the ideal state of sovereignty in its ideal and well position. From there, we look at rising into individuality. When energy is in coherence, you have a natural relationship to your will, or, as I like to call it, personal power. The ability to take action in the world and create using your self, where balanced discernment takes place and feeds our design for esteem. When this is incoherent, overjudgments or inability to maintain esteem happens when judgments collapse into shame. That is when you see people whose fire is out or their aliveness has dimmed. And this is where inner trust gets divided and people lose their talent for transformation. It needs to know autonomy to elevate. Next, we have non-judgment, compassion, being in the frequency of love. It's a potent resonance, and it is significant to both our physical wellness, our increase in consciousness, and a gateway to higher energy. There are so many false versions of kindness or service that it can be challenging to navigate agency if the ego still has agendas. We hold our social intelligence at this juncture. This is the crossroads of leaving physical, emotional, and mental subtle bodies and beginning to function from the soul body. When this is split, grief is echoed and can make self-acceptance nearly impossible. When this is made whole, we perceive in unconditional ways, and we receive in unconditional ways. We move up into the realm of conscious communication and connectivity, adding ourselves to the collective intelligence. The world of languages shapes our future and continues what we've accomplished from the past. We blueprint our thinking so it can be heard. Without this intact, fragmenting becomes lies, denial, or deceptions. Now, let's not get dramatic about these words. What I mean is, it simply includes softer versions of when we avoid the neutrality of truth and non-manipulation, both ourselves, within, and externally with others, even if it can't be recognized in the moment. This is freedom from a limiting influence once it's in integrity. Rising further is the energy of a frequency of seeing within and the entrance to removing perceptions, having imagination. This is critical for clarity in all of our non-physical bodies. Here we hold our higher knowledge. We retrieve our visions for ourselves and our lives. We now address the actual nature of things instead of through our ego mind. The ability of visualization overtakes thoughts. And yet, when split, this energy becomes illusion and confusion. And we miss out on the power of having a dream that is waiting to come true through us. The top scale of coherent energy is our original state. This is the point of transcending form, the emptiness of mind, and into pure consciousness, the space of enlightenment and full detachment from self, and where higher self or soul joins the cosmos, God, or the universe. Like plugging into a stronger voltage. At this level, we touch our purpose or destiny. And the only block to all of this is attachment. Not letting go of that last part of familiarity will not allow the passage. Fighting that fusing, even in basic meditation, happens often. It's not meant to be easy. It requires a mind state I teach in my intuition course, and the attachment is the root of all of our suffering and discomfort in life. Pain we understand. We've been taught pain. Suffering gets erased from the mind at this space. Whew. Well, phew. That was a concentrated overview. So let's get a little lighter. Why this framework matters is it makes it effortless to find and know your own fragments. I have used this template for energetic medicine, healing sessions, hands-on body work, energetic clearing and balancing, when I did clairvoyant readings, and when I'm considering a new connection, such as a job, an address, a friendship. To me, this is priceless. To know quickly and easily where you're split means you already have the answer. Knowing that you can drive your awakening to the levels you want and be in charge of your wholeness and consciousness, well, that will change your availability and non-availability to what you choose. Now, what is the reverse or descending result of this scale of energies? Manifestation of making your ideas into realities. That means that the last and most revolutionary union is your inner world and your outer life to work as one. So now we're going to do a supporting exercise in energetic medicine. And since you have the knowledge part of the lesson, you need the experience part, or the lab work, as I call it. Again, why wasn't learning ever enough? Because energy and matter are interconnected and not independent of each other. And energy hygiene addresses the residue from being split, as well as what comes from being in outer environments that contribute to fragmenting. So please find yourself some space to stand or sit if you need to, and let's begin. Few fingers either side of the sternum under the collarbone, K27 meridian points, jiggle, lift the belly button, 2 minutes, clear shame, increase boundaries, take action, get self-esteem. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that. Now, let's be realistic. I'm not asking for you to automatically tell that you're now in a state of coherence, any more than you're supposed to feel your new alignment after getting your orthodontic braces tightened, or the chiropractor who now has given you a spine adjustment. That happens with building a sensitivity through rounds and rounds of practicing. Now, I do want to share why people don't get amazing results when they sage themselves or wear crystals or do a lot of yoga. It has everything to do with design and intention. These things weren't meant to put your subtle bodies into energetic coherence or an unblocked and unified state. Meridian work, kriyas, qigong, and mantras were. Finding the right one for your work is part of our job together. If you're at all like me, one modality is a better choice for certain splits, and I fully respect people who love sticking to one and experience universal results. Why did I come out of retirement? Well, my story for the next level of this, when I fully committed to consistently being available and training anyone who wants to leave suffering and embrace their awakening, was in July of 2023. Before then, I was busy working on myself. I had trained other people. COVID happened. Being in person was no longer available. So I returned to my own practice. However, it was an interesting time in my life, And the critical mass of being unemployed and having an alcoholic parent return to my orbit after 20 years, and me exiting a dysfunctional relationship with a few other things created deep splits. And now I was in total incoherence. I knew that it was time to rework my energies, find the fragments, practice, execute the hygiene, and go back to bending reality. When you fill in your missing pieces, the picture of you changes, just like when you're playing a puzzle on a table. The more you begin to snap pieces into the whole, the more the picture changes. You are the microverse to the macroverse. A new life will match an attuned version of you. So, within 2 weeks, I had interviews. Within a month, a recruiter had me lined up for a killer remote job. But wait, an old employer reached out and offered 25% more compensation. My parent found a housing solution, and other problems flew off of me, while solutions gravitated towards me. In 2024, I was diagnosed with a serious medical issue. Alternatives found me within 2 weeks for my wellness, my lifestyle change, and a second opinion. On top of that, I effortlessly got another job with a 30% raise over the current salary. The training was in New York City, and so I moved out east, where I met with a co-host for the shift. You see, coherence attracts natural order and necessity into your world, while freeing you from the sufferings of fear, guilt, shame, grief, lies, illusion, and attachment. A perfect union of your understanding, your energetic frequency, and your co-creation with life. Where people fail, fatigue, or freeze in this work, it's what I've named the morality triplets, and I've written extensively about this over the decade. So aside from energy work, it's the programming of ourselves, the ones we get from our parents, and of course, what society hands down makes blame, shame, and guilt. Blame being toxic desire for or to avoid accountability and punishment. Shame is a toxic censorship of your autonomy. And guilt is toxic remorse and unwillingness to surrender. These are the deadliest to the psyche. And once embodied and taken on as personas, we are in a fail, freeze, or fatigue process at the drop of a hat. And this is where I have clients and students doing pre-work for the knowledge and experience of shifting their energy signature and causing a karmic completion. Like I said, I'd come back to this, meaning they're done attracting this lesson because they're willing to learn it within. Of course, you can allow other people and situations to be your teachers. I can't tell you the number of horrible jobs I've had, but you can accelerate the ending of this by teaching yourself and changing your energy signature so that you don't need a situation or circumstance to mirror this to you. So there you have the behind the scenes on integration and my energetic medicine work. Now, I could pepper you with client stories and student testimonials, but the whole point of my brand and business is that this is a university, not the hope that your adventure will sound like someone else's. Nobody else I knew had prolonged unemployment and a parent crisis, so why would somebody else's results interest me? Now, what's next for you? If, like me, you want to bring together all those pieces, or you believe the future of medicine is energy, or you're looking to diminish some suffering and cause some awakening for yourself, with yourself, well, of course there's a course, or a workbook, or an online workshop. I do them all Tell me your preference. Maybe this was a little heady and you're ready for something a little simpler. We can discuss the other offerings. I teach on intuition. We have a different talk in this program, The Shift, on magic. Or there are many digital publications to walk yourself through in a variety of areas that all support this. You can book a clarity call. Pick one area you have the biggest split or fragment, and we will get some focus and some action on that. And if you need to come in and see what I'm all about, find me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. They're all at Know Yourself Well. I wish you a brilliant 2025 because this year is poised to be your best of times if you're ready to leap into enlightenment.